welcome to the Motorsport Review. I am your host, Perry Brown. I hope you're having a fantastic week so far. I'm very delighted to say that joining me today is David to talk about the Dakar Rally. So without further ado, how are you, David?
I'm doing good, Perry. How are you doing?
Yes, very good, thank you. Yes, very excited. Also very nervous to be talking about the Dakar Rally because it's not something I know an awful lot about, and that's where you step in. Unfortunately, the show is going to lean very heavily on you teaching me, guiding me through the Dakar Rally, which I have to say I really enjoyed watching, and we'll get into that, I am sure. So you're obviously a fan of the Dakar Rally. What's your background in the Dakar Rally? Have you followed it for a long time? Do you follow rally in general?
My background is from following rally in general, which led me to the Dakar. I've been following it since it's been in Saudi Arabia, which has been around 4 or 5 years now. Like most motorsports fans, I started as an F1 fan when I was a kid, which then led me into other motorsports, which I'm sure is everyone's story, right? So I got into rallying, traditional rallying, WRC, Group B, Rally 1 now, what most people are probably familiar with, which then got me interested in Dakar. It's just fascinating. The whole navigational aspect, it's like nothing else. I always say it's like a Top Gear special if it was a competitive motorsport. And since then, I've just started talking about it a lot online. I do a blog where I share information on it, and then on my social media, I always do recaps of all the stages, information about the stages to coming, which I think has been great because I found a lot of motorsport fans recently, especially F1 fans that have come from DTS, have become really interested in it in the last couple of years, which is really exciting to see this event grow because I think it's really special.
That's exactly why we're here. Yes, started this podcast because a lot of people follow Formula One, and then they start to branch out into other motorsport series. And I said, well, I'd love to learn more about them. And Dakar's one where I've heard a lot about it. Now, WRC I've used to follow a lot more than I do now. And again, I'll get onto that later in the year. But Dakar's one I've never really watched, but I've heard a lot about it and the machines that they create to take this challenge on. As you say, it's like a Top Gear challenge. I'm surprised and I'm not surprised that they haven't ever taken it on, given how grueling a challenge it is. I'm not surprised that they decided to steer clear of it rather than sending free TV presenters out into the middle of the desert. But a little bit about why perhaps it's called the Dakar Rally. Those that are very good at geography, yes, that is the capital of Senegal, and as you mentioned, it's not anywhere near Senegal. So if you will give us a little bit of history on why it's called the Dakar Rally and why I'm trying very hard not to say the Paris Dakar Rally.
Yeah, well, that's just it. It began life as the Paris Dakar Rally in 1978. This was the brainchild of Thierry Sabine. He was a French motorcycle racer. He was doing the Rally Côte Côte when he got stranded in the desert in Africa, and he fell in love with the desert and dreamed up a massive rally from his home country of France, starting in Paris, all the way down to Dakar, which began in 1978, and it ran until 2008 in Africa, when it was canceled due to the rise of Islamic terrorism, unfortunately, in which it moved to South America for a few years, which went through multiple countries. And then in 2020, it moved to Saudi Arabia, where it is now fully contained in Saudi Arabia.
Yes, admittedly, I thought this was the first year in Saudi Arabia. I knew it as being in South America. It was a surprise to me looking it up and going, actually, it's been in Saudi Arabia now for a fair few years. But there were some changes this year. They changed up some of the routes, which we'll get into, I'm sure, later on. But I think the important question I like to always ask about these series quite early on in the sort of review is how we go about and watch them. So I think it's much the same way now that you go on YouTube. There's a Dakar page, which I'll share in the notes for this episode. And I watch the 10 minutes highlights that they put out after every episode. But I imagine that you followed it a lot more closely, perhaps.
Yes, the primary way to follow it is with highlights. There's no live coverage, unfortunately. I do hope that does happen one year. It is quite difficult given the conditions. You know, competitors not only are they out there all day, but they're usually miles apart from each other. So there's not always a lot of close racing action to watch. Um, so main ways you can watch, local broadcasters usually have like a 1 hour recap show every day. It's different in every country. I know some countries like Czechia that are very involved in the rally, or Latvia, because they have big truck teams, might do really in-depth coverage. Some countries, it's not going to be a lot of coverage besides just replaying Dakar's provided highlights if your country's not involved in it. But all of that information is on Dakar's website. So for 2026, fans can go over there and find out who their local provider here. Here in the United States, it's Peacock, which they do a pretty decent 1 hour show. But for everyone, the YouTube highlights are the best way to watch. It's just on Dakar's YouTube page. They're usually about 10 minutes. And then the other way, if you want to get in depth, is really just following local journalists that are on the ground. It can be the teams as well. Dirtfish is a big one. If you're in the rallying world, you already know who they are. And then following the local teams are usually pretty good about posting updates on all of their competitors.
Yes, as you say, there's a lot of footage they could be getting that is very difficult, but some of the shots they get, the helicopter shots, and when there's multiple cars leaving their dirt trails and you get this wide angle shot of this desert with about 6 or 7 of these dust trails just driving along, it's just absolutely epic, especially as they go over dunes. And yeah, they get some really good shots. They know exactly where to stand to get the best of the action. And even in the 10-minute clips I was watching, they were really capturing the sort of the camaraderie and the things that happen in the bivouac, which is my new favorite word, by the way.
Yeah.
So in the bivouac, they're all hanging out, and that's really the thing with Dakar. I think that it's less me versus you, although that still happens. It's more the competitors against the event. It's such a challenging event, as we've already touched on, but let's get into that. It's run from the 3rd to the 17th of January, and I honestly thought they start off with the prologue event, which is quite a short stage compared to the rest of the event. And I honestly thought they'd do the prologue and then they'd probably have a day's rest. And then no, it's straight into the chrono.
Yep. Prologue is effectively qualifying for the Dakar. It's very short. It was this year was the same route, area stage one, not the exact same route, but it was Bisha to Bisha. That sets the road order. It's quite funny because top 10 that finish the prologue get to choose their starting positions. And the way they do it is that they go on a stage and they announce the top 10 finishers, and then they ask you where you want to start, and everyone selects the last spot. So it's just like, you got 10th, what do you want? And they're 28th. 9th, what do you want? 28th. And then the person who's just 28 before gets bumped up to 27. And it was just everyone choosing the last spot, because the interesting about rallying in general, and especially Dakar, is you want to qualify last, which is quite different than F1.
Yes, definitely. There's a little bit of it happens in rally that I've seen before, and they've never quite been able to get the rules just so that they want people to push all the time. But yes, the strategy element certainly later on as well, when you've got a few minutes in hand and you see them sort of back off and delay their finish time because they know the next day they're going to get a better position and gain much more than the couple of seconds or minutes that they lose on that day. It was interesting, and I did like they captured that moment of them up on stage and them all saying the same number, as you say, trying to get last. But why was that? Why were they trying to get last? Just to explain that a little bit.
Yeah, so the reason is we call it a road order, or a road position. Starting a stage, you are basically have to navigate yourself. You're laying the first set of tracks. And obviously, as you can imagine, starting behind someone, you can just follow where they're going. You can learn from their mistakes. So, starting first one, you're digging through the sand with your tires. So following in someone else's tracks literally is more useful. And actual WRC, we call this sweeping the road. If the road's covered in gravel, you get your car to a person goes first is going to clear that up. So that's a big benefit. Like I said, learning from the mistakes of the person in front of you, being able to follow them. It's navigation is what makes this sport rally raid unique. You know, there's not a set route like in traditional rallying. You have a road book of loose directions that you're following, and if you're starting out and you're the one that has to interpret that, it slows you down trying to figure all that out.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I absolutely loved is there's different classes of this as well that we should cover. There's cars, there's trucks, but there's bikes, and they all get the same road book. So you can imagine if you're in a car, you've got your co-driver next to you saying carry on this way, but the bike riders are there traveling
Oh
through
yeah.
the dirt and dunes. They got their hands on the handlebars like this, and they're sort of having to go like this down at their same road book. And I thought that was just absolutely epic to see them doing that. So yeah, they've got to, as you say, they've got to navigate to GPS points where they get checked in, and then they carry on their way. As I say, it's very unlike anything else where there were times when they were getting lost, and you see the first car sort of having to do this big loop, and
Yep.
there's other cars just doing circles around. And yeah, that's a big aspect, that GPS, and not getting lost, and hopefully getting the navigation just right.
Yeah, it also ruins your plan of following someone's tracks if you end up in that where everyone gets lost. You have just a maze of tracks going all sort of directions, and then everyone's confused. It is quite funny when you see the aerial camera footage of the cars all doing loops and trying. It gets chaotic out there at some points.
Yeah, it really does. And yeah, it's an incredibly tough event, as we said. So I looked at the final finish times. We're talking 53 hours, as I say, between the 3rd and the 17th. I think there was only one day perhaps in that as well when they weren't out there and in the dirt. So it's incredibly tough. You can imagine the concentration levels that they must have to constantly be looking at where they're going, the navigation, try not to get lost, trying to look at the trails of other cars and bikes, and not just getting lost in the sand. I couldn't imagine it myself.
Yeah,
That
and you're also
concentration
doing
level.
that at speed. You know, they're
Yes,
going quite fast out there and having to pay attention to everywhere they go.
yeah, it's incredible. I'm much happier when I watch my Formula series. Typically, is where I'm at. But learning, say, 15 corners of a track and where to brake and where to turn, that's where my element is. So suddenly going and being like, you set off and then you just hit dunes and distance, and there's mountain ranges perhaps in the distance on the horizon. It's incredible. Yeah, it's and over 53 hours total. As I say, it's a hell of an event. And as I say, they're competing more against that terrain. But one thing I did like is, again, coming back to that word, the camaraderie. You saw a couple of riders went down, or cars go over, is that they are almost encouraged to help each other. So if they do stop and help someone, they get that time back. But you're then helping your rival. So some people were just driving by. But what do we think about that aspect? You know, trying to help each other out, because at the end of the day, we don't want to lose any competitors. And this year there were no deaths, but there have been in the past. It is just that it is nature of the challenge, that it's very tricky and that there are deaths, unfortunately.
Yeah, first year in a little bit with no deaths, which was great. It is an unfortunate part of the sport. You know, the FIA has done a really good job of cutting back on that. It's much better than it was back in the decades ago. And the spirit of the car is a big part of that. And competitors are really encouraged to help each other. Like you say, if you do stop to help a competitor, you are awarded that time back, which encourages people to stop and help each other out, both for mechanical and medical reasons as well. Which is it's just a really nice part of the sport. And as you can imagine, spending 2 weeks out in the desert, you're all camping together. They really do build up this huge sense of community. Everyone understands the risks and why they're there. And I think that's one of the best parts about this sport. It's sort of magical in a way, this, unlike anything else you see in motorsports, this real sense of community, and that we're here to do a sport and respect each other. You don't see the tribalism like you might see in the more popular motorsports. So yes, Spirit of Dakar is quite a beautiful aspect of the sport.
Yeah, they certainly romanticize that a lot, about, they all get together, and as I say, seeing them all in the bivouac, they've all been racing for so long, that they get back there and they're all sharing their stories of the day and how they ended up getting lost, or that they've been flying and had like a really good day, and just all coming together, having that meal together, not just with their own mechanics. And as you say, in other sports where they would just stay very team focused, they were all there as riders and competitors against the elements. So a part of the help as well, when we said about there not being deaths, they changed it up a little bit this year. They sent the trucks, especially, on a different route in places to the bikes. When I said there was slight differences, I got this from your ultimate guide for newbies, which I am, that they changed the route, so I didn't know this. So thank you very much for writing that. And again, I'll put the link to that. So yes, there was a change in the route slightly.
Yes, that was one of the safety initiatives this year, and a competitive initiative was to split some of the routes. So traditionally, bikes, trucks, SSVs, and cars would follow the same route, the same road book. There was a lot of stages this year that they split cars, which includes the trucks underneath the cars, and the bikes. There was one stage that the trucks had their own route. The safety component of this is that the trucks especially leave really big ruts in the dirt from their tires, as you can imagine. And if a biker comes up on this unknowingly and they're not prepared for it, it's very easy to flip a bike on one of these. So that's always been a safety concern. And then from the competitive standpoint, the bikes always go first. So there has been a problem where the car opening the stage will just follow the bike's tracks. So making the cars have to open a stage with no bikes in front of them was a really fun extra challenge, because then you really were heading out into the desert on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of who you were following, are you more of a bike fan? Are you more of a car fan, or trucks? Where do you lean on that, or do you just love the whole event and everyone taking part equally?
As much as I love the whole event, I'm very much a cars fan. I pretty much just follow especially the ultimate category,
Yeah.
Which is, if you're a WEC fan, it's like the hypercar equivalent. It's the top class, the fastest cars. It's also where you get your big names: Carlos Sainz, Sebastian Loeb, Nasser Al-Attiyah. So that's my bread and butter. I've always been a motorsport fan of four wheels. But I have a hell of a lot of respect for the bikers. I do always say that I think they have it the toughest out there, as you mentioned,
Yeah.
being by yourself. I think those guys are incredibly badass, and insane. Honestly, I would always say it's a dream to do the Dakar, but I would never do it on a bike. I think that is crazy.
Yeah. I think I'd agree. I think I'd fully agree with that. Yeah. I'll start off in a truck, a team of three, and we'll go from there. But yeah, I was the same. I'm looking at the ultimate. I'm looking at the names that are driving the ultimate. I'm more of a car guy, but as you say, the respect for the people on the bikes is just insane. What they're out there doing, and some of the crashes that they had, especially, was just, they picked themselves up, and you can see that they've been preparing for so long for this. They just want to get back on the bike and go again, and there will almost be someone else saying, no, stop, you've had a bad crash, you need to stop, and you need to think about this and take stock. And yeah, you can see the pain when they go down like that. Yeah, I think I'd be rather in a car. But you mentioned some big names there. You mentioned the top three names probably going into the 2025 Dakar in Sebastian Loeb. Are you wearing your Citroen gear? Are you a Sebastian Loeb fan, I'm guessing?
Yeah, I've always been a Sebastian Loeb, a Citroen fan, French rallying fan. Uh, French rallying is
Fantastic.
the best cars.
So Sebastian Loeb, Carlos Sainz, but not the I was going to say the Ferrari driver, not the Formula One. His dad, of course.
The Carlos Sainz.
The Carlos Sainz, yes, Carlos Sainz Senior. You have to call him now. He obviously won this event in the Audi last year. Am I right in saying that?
He did, yes. I have a photo of it behind me. I'm also a Carlos Sainz fan. Yeah, it was incredible last year in the Audi, the RSQ e-tron E2, the first electric powered car to win the Dakar. It's just a great story. I think that was their fourth year trying with that Audi program, also their last year, so they really only had one shot at it. They were going to shutter the program no matter what to go to F1. So just incredible they were finally able to do it, prove what electric motorsports can do. And against, this wasn't like Formula E where it's all electric. I mean, this is an electric car competing against gas-powered cars. And the storyline of the last event was all Sainz Loeb. La Maestro versus El Matador. It was a great battle, and this year was the opposite. We lost both of them within 3 stages. So the
Yes,
rematch was not to be.
it wasn't. And it just goes to show how difficult the Dakar is when you've got such huge names of rallying that unfortunately both suffered fairly big rolls and damaged both the roll cages. And the FIA stepped in and said, no, you can't repair it. You can't sort of muddle it together. But the state their cars were in when they returned back. And it just shows I think they said Carlos Sainz lost a couple of hours just trying to repair his car, get it back. And this was on day one of the chrono as well. So it wasn't like he got it back that evening. He then had to set off the day after in a car that was barely held together and do a second day in it. So again, just that sheer will to get through and to finish the Dakar Rally. But yeah, as you say, both of them out within 3 stages was a shock, was a surprise, and it then meant that everyone's sort of forced to look further down the order and maybe at a surprise winner straight away. So I mean, I sort of follow Dakar, as I say, not really that much. So I was like, right, where's Peter Hansel? And that's the name I remember, and he wasn't in it this
The
year.
first year not doing it for a long time. He was with the Audi program last year.
Yeah.
As of right now, he's not doing it anymore. For those that don't know, Stefan Peter Hansel is Mr. Dakar. He's won it more times than anyone. He's done it. He's won it on both cars and bikes, which is just crazy. He's one of the best, another French rallying legend. And yeah, Sainz and Loeb both out. Same exact thing happened to both of them. They damaged the roll cage. FIA rules is that the roll cage has to be intact. You cannot repair it. Both drivers complained about this. They both believed the roll cage to be repairable, but it has to be a new roll cage. If it's damaged in any way, it's a forced retirement. Dacia, Loeb's team did file a complaint with FIA about this to try and get it overturned. It was not. So that's definitely going to be a big storyline of the off season. Is the rule too strict? Does that need to be looked at? I definitely think, unfortunately, from a viewership standpoint, the Dakar definitely suffered this year with both of them out. I definitely saw a lot of people online lose interest without that rematch that was really hyped up. Just crazy to lose both of them within 2 days.
Yeah, I didn't realize they had appealed that. They showed a shot again of some very important looking people. It was nighttime. Their lights were on, so they're clearly working late into the night. So it kind of gave you the impression that they were looking at an appeal or what they could do, like last second, working all those hours that they could do, just maximizing everything to try and keep Sebastian Loeb in the event. And as you say, unfortunately, not to be. But again, like this podcast is here, it means you can shine a light on things happening that maybe would have just gone below the radar. So we got some great rallying in anyway, and it meant other names got brought to the fore. And one I've mentioned that kept coming up in the highlights was Edgar Canet on the bikes. He's a 19-year-old, and I think this is his first Dakar, and he was in the he scored a few top threes, and he was just there constantly. And as I say, it's enough of a challenge on the bikes getting to the finish anyway. But he was quick as well, so a name for the future there, I think.
Yeah, this was definitely the year of the youth revolution. It was a really exciting opportunity to see them all the youngins go out there. We had some in the cars as well. Young guys, Seth Quintero from the US had a great rally. He's a real up and coming name. Yeah, man, what a great battle we had. It was the second closest finish in Dakar history by the end.
Yeah.
So it was very exciting. I thought to have Sainz and Loeb out, unfortunate, but it definitely gave us a preview of the future of this event.
Yeah, absolutely. I am really boring. I'm really sorry to do this, but I ran some numbers. So we've got the winners, as you say. It was incredibly close event. So you have to imagine after 53 hours, the winner of the ultimate class was Yazid Al Raji. I hope I've said that right. In a private Toyota. Toyota
for the tier
Hilux,
win.
which is incredible, really. He won by 3 minutes. Where is it? He won by 3 minutes 47 seconds, which, as I say, over a 53-hour event is not much at all. And if you equate it down to a Formula One race of about an hour 40. Yes, this is a Formula One podcast. I had to do some numbers. It was a win of about 7.2 seconds. So
Yeah, that's really interesting to know. Yeah, this was close for Dakar standards. Yeah, it's not
it's
abnormal to
incredible.
see a win close to an hour, or more in some years. So yeah, 3 minutes was nuts.
It really was. Yeah, it was the year of Toyota. They really hit their stride. But with Dacia and with Ford, basically in the first year of their car development, I suspect next year could be an even tougher fight as well. So I'll certainly be tuning in next year to see the culmination of that. Hopefully it is that fight. Hopefully it's got a Sainz and a Loeb and a Alatia at the end as well, fighting that out. So as I say, there was a win of 3 minutes 47 in the ultimate. Just to run through the others in the bikes, you had Daniel Sanders for KTM. He won by 8 minutes 50. So it's still close. As you say, I'm used to 2 hours, which is then when we get to the challengers. T3 Nicholas Cavigliasso. I practiced that. Would you believe Cavigliasso, and he won by an hour 11. Brock Hager in T4 won by 2 hours 6 minutes. So we're starting to get to those bigger gaps. But in trucks, there's only one name, Martin Maciek. He won every stage, and he won by 2 hours 21 minutes. That's phenomenal.
The Czechs dominate the trucks right now. They're very good.
He built the top three as well, I believe, possibly.
Maybe I have to look
They
at that.
were saying something about he and his team or his garage built the trucks that were dominating. So yeah, his win. Yes, I did the numbers on his win as well. If you want to talk about domination of an event, his win in Formula One terms was a win of 26.4 seconds. Yes, I'm really sorry. I haven't got any more numbers. I promise not to do that again. But just to try and put it into Formula One terms when we're talking about these gaps and these wins. So yeah, you had, I'd say, Martin absolutely dominating the trucks, but yeah, to see it come down to so close in the ultimate, again, that's where I was focused. That's where you were focused. That's had the most attention with the biggest names. I really look forward to that next year. This I thought that the Dakar Rally was its own event, and only recently, i.e., since I started doing a bit of research for this podcast, realized that there's actually a Rally Raid Championship. And
Yes,
hopefully, you're going to talk to me a little bit about the championship because I know very little about it.
I will. All right. So this was the first round of the World Rally Raid Championships called W2RC. Within the World of Rallying, you have three primary championships. You have the World Rally Championship, which everyone knows. You have the World Rally Cross Championship, and now we have W2RC. This is relatively new. It's only a couple years old. There's 5 rounds this year. Dakar is the first one. It's the most important. It's the crown jewel, like Le Mans or the Indy 500. It's also worth the most points in the standing. It's worth 50 points for first. Every other event is worth 30. So if you enjoyed this, there will be more. We're going to Abu Dhabi in February for the Abu Dhabi Desert Challenge. There's an exciting new addition to the calendar this year in South Africa. It's a new safari rally, which is it's going to be amazing down there. They said they're going to be out in the safari. There's going to be lions and everything. They even talked about already them camping out in their own bivouacs with the lions roaring out there, which is going to be very exciting. We have Rally Portugal, which is a traditional one, and we also have the Rally du Maroc, which is usually seen as the testing ground for Dakar because that happens at the end of the year in December, and that's usually when you see teams debut actually their new cars that they're going to be using in Dakar.
There you go. So if you want to be in the know for 2026, there you go. There you have it. Watch the 2025 season, and I'll be following along. It's gained a newfound respect for me. It's not just one event that they sort of tackle, because I feel like my understanding of it pretty much comes from Gran Turismo, and it's kind of like the Pikes Peak, where I know this event happens, but I've never actually delved into it. So the beauty of having a podcast where you challenge yourself to learn something new is you learn so much more about what racing is out there. And yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad already that I've hit a gem, I feel like. And as you say, it's in its infancy. So if you can get on board with it now, I'm sure in years to come, it's going to grow, it's going to get bigger, and there's going to be more events like the Dakar that, as you say, are really exciting. That South African event sounds like it's going to be mega. As someone that's been down to South Africa a few times in his youth and done a few safaris, just obviously on the back of a truck, not actual safari rallies, but even just seeing that spectacular nature and the environment that they're going to be rallying through, that's really exciting to hear. So I think that brings us to the end of our Dakar Rally review. David, thank you so much for writing that blog post that as I say, I'm going to share the link for, that brought me your way and has brought you onto this podcast, and for sharing your love for the Dakar Rally. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you for having me. It was a ton of fun. I love sharing this event with people. I think it's amazing, and I really hope we continue to see it grow in popularity in the coming years, especially with the new WTRC season, which we talked about. So if you loved this event and you want to check out more, go to WTRC's YouTube page to see highlights for the future events. It's going to be a really fun season. All your favorites, Signs and Loeb, you don't have to wait till the next Dakar to see them. They're going to be back in action already next month. And you can find me. My website is dirt2asphalt.com, and I post a lot about all things rallying on Threads at my name, DAVIDMILAM12, as well as Blue Sky at davidmilam.bluesky.social.
Excellent. I'll share those links as well, so people can click straight into them, get hold of you, and follow you on there. So thank you very much. This was the Motorsport Review. Have a very good week, and speak to you soon.